Ask your audience what are the top 3 payment methods they use daily to shop everywhere else. If you see that they use some payment methods that you don't offer today, enable them on your website, especially if you're using something like Shopify. That will increase your conversion rate significantly. As an example, when we enabled Apple Pay on Scentbird website, we saw something like 20% increase in conversion on the checkout page. That was insanely high.
Today, my guest is Andrei Rebrov, the co-founder of Finsi, the data intelligence startup. I met with Andrei when he was in his previous role, the CTO of Scentbird. Scentbird is one of the pioneers in the subscription economy. We discussed with Andrei what you can do with all the data and how you can utilize it if you operate retail or subscription business. One topic that I was super interested about is how you can classify and categorize customers based on all the available signals. And with this, please welcome Andrei Rebrov. So you've been a CTO at Scentbird, and now you are starting your own adventure. I'm very, very curious. It feels like you're such in love with a particular problem you're trying to solve and trying to solve for other businesses that you're starting your like B2B company. So can you tell me more about like what problem you're trying to solve? What's the challenge? And it looks like you're so passionate about it that you're like switched where you are today. So I'm very, very curious.
Sure. So yes, over the past year, I've been actively working on my new business called Finsi. And what Finsi does is it helps subscription and e-commerce companies to better acquire, activate, and identify the most profitable customers. And what does it actually mean and how did I get there? So before Finsi, as you said, I was CTO and co-founder at Scentbird, perfume subscription business. And we've been doing it for 12 years. At least I was doing it for 12 years. And we built a lot of things in-house. So we built the front store, the back office, analytical systems. And analytical system was one of the key success to the overall Scentbird story because we grew to more than 1 million subscribers. And for me, that was always the default way how you run your organization. You have your data, you know exactly what's going on with each cohort, you know your margin per cohort, payback, you know all the numbers. If you see something strange, you see it pretty soon, you can react to it, you can fix these things. And then I started to go out to the conferences about 4 or 5 years ago, and I started to talk to other people in the commerce and subscriptions and realized that's not necessarily the case. A lot of people are, many cases, they're flying blindly. They use their gut feeling. They use pretty top level numbers. Like in the worst case scenario, they use average numbers, and that's what might kill the company. So I said to myself, this is something that needs to be changed. I'm very passionate about being data driven. And I was thinking about it. Should I start it? Should I not? Like how I envision it. And then AI happened. So for me, the mix of automation, data analytics, and AI was the pretty cool mix of things. And then I just made the jump and started Finsi a year ago, and here I am now.
It's exciting. When you say analytics, what do you mean exactly? Because I would imagine many companies see it differently, and there are so many data points you can use, right? And so many metrics. So, yeah, what's exact part of the analytics? Yeah,
absolutely. And I want to say that I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with the finance team at Scentbird, and I learned a different world of numbers and data and analytics. So what do I mean when I talk about analytics? First and foremost, for me, analytics is company business business data. So how we're doing in terms of revenue, profit, margin, growth, issues, upsides, cash flow, because this is what if you know these numbers, you can operate them, you can find out what affects them, and then you can effectively make your business growth. For many people, analytics is just average data that they see in their main Shopify dashboard daily. And this data, it's still data, like nothing wrong with it itself, but this is a data that is not actionable. It doesn't give you insights. It doesn't give you explanation of what happened, why it happened, and most importantly, what to do about it. So for me, analytics is a knowledge that you got about what happened in the past, and you understand how to use it in order to move forward.
Right. The way you're describing it, it feels focused more on the kind of like a top level exec users who wants to see like the dashboard of their business, right? Or maybe like a like a dashboard of their business where it's running, and what are the top indicators. Is this right? So you're basically building like a dashboard for CEOs?
Yes, no. Because before Scentbird, I was actually doing agile implementations and agile transformations. And one of the techniques that we used was 5 whys. I think it's from lean manufacturing. So when you see something, you need to ask yourself and your team why at least 5 times to figure out what's actually going on, like what is the driving thing. So yes, it all starts with the exact level summary, exact level of dashboard that might tell, hey, our cost of acquisition increased by 10% last week. And then you ask yourself, why? So you go to level deeper. Then you learn about fluctuation in Facebook. You learn about what has happened on your website. You learn about your email marketing that, for example, didn't perform the way you expected. Then you ask why. Why were the issue happening? And like, yes, it all starts with the main things that drive the company, but the idea is to get to the nitty-gritty details, and that completes the analytical approach, because like you get to these details, you then figure out what to do next. Because when you look at your big numbers, and they tell you, hey, our cost of acquisition jumped by 10%. So what do you next? So you have to go very deep. You have to go to the level of execution and implementation to figure out why and what to do next. So yes, like we show the big dashboard initially, but you can jump into every detail of operating the business.
Yeah, I'm very curious how you achieve it from the technical perspective, because sometimes it's really hard to drill down to like raw data, and maybe not just the data, but to see the insights, right? Like very detailed insights from the bigger insights. So I think it's quite an interesting challenge, because you have to like predict what type of questions and what type of analysis will be required for a particular problem that you identified. How do you solve this?
And this is literally a $1 million question, because before doing any AI or machine learning exercises, you need to figure out your data, and you need to ensure that your data is clean, it has no issues, it's stored correctly, it's stored in an accessible way, and so on and so forth. So, and this is something that we solve first and foremost for the brands. And this is one of the reasons why we decided to work on Finsi, because when you look at the pretty typical e-commerce company, the way how they operate is they have about a dozen of systems. They have the front store, let's say Shopify, subscription billing, email marketing system, 2 or 3 paid channels. They have their customer support and so on and so forth. And it's a pretty disconnected data. So you see something moving in one system, and unless you have some way to connect the dots, you won't be able to understand, okay, if something happened, let's say in Facebook or my website, how did it affect my customer support? So what we see right now is a lot of people trying to figure it out manually. They do numerous exports in Excel spreadsheets. They do numerous pivots, and they spend a lot of time generating these reports in order to get to the answer. And this is where AI kind of comes into play. And like I'll make an asterisk here about exactly how it works here. So when people talk about using AI in analytics, and I posted on LinkedIn about it, they assume they can just connect, Claude to their payment data, start asking questions, and all these questions will be answered exactly correct, 100% of time, no matter how often do they ask it. And this is pretty big misunderstanding of how AI works, unless you have a very detailed way to explain to you how to pull revenue data, for example. Every time it will query your data differently, and you might see different numbers. And this is one of the issues. So the first thing is you connect all the data systems, you stitch the data the right way. Then you have the ways how to pull the data correctly. So now you have your final metrics. And this is where you actually start asking AI to do the insight analysis, because now you see correlation. Let's say you pull data for yesterday, you see something happening with the cost of acquisition, spend on Facebook, conversion on the website, and then you start asking it, hey, find how this data is collected, what can drive one thing, what can affect the other thing. And because in many cases there is a specific way how this data is analyzed in the flow, so AI can do this very fast, and it can analyze multiple different scenarios. And this is where it can do this job much better than a team of people, because one of the biggest issues with having your internal analytics or even external analytics is you need to understand both the data and the meaning of this data. So because AI can handle much bigger context window, and it's not limited to certain tunnel vision, it can do this job usually better than a human can do.
Maybe for me and for listeners to better understand and impact what the system can make on a business, can you provide maybe like a couple of examples
Mm-hmm.
how this analytics tool can solve some specific problems, or kind of like what are the real
Mm-hmm.
world examples
Sure.
that you can see?
So when we work with businesses and we create the weekly reports, we always highlight anomalies, positive and negative, alongside with trends. And positive anomalies could be something, hey, we see a cohort of people that is constantly spending more than others. They're not just the subscribers, they buy on top of that. And this is happening over and over again. And with one brand that led to creation of the VIP program, and we saw that the LTV of these people is 80% higher than the rest of the audiences. Yes, VIP represent from 8 to 10% of all the customers, but when you do the final calculation, you can see how big impact it is, and not just right now, cumulatively in 1 year. And like this is something that also people don't necessarily understand, the effect, the compounding effect. Like if you, like, I will give you an example. Like what will happen if you increase prices by $1 to a subscription? In what will happen in 1 year? The things that you need to get in here is the, like, all the subscription LTV, but also like potential churn. And it's a hard calculation unless you do it every time. You won't be thinking about it every time. So AI can do this and say, hey, if you introduce a VIP plan in 1 year, you'll be generating 20% more in profit. And this is something that AI can highlight and do it, let's call it casually. And this is what we did with one company. In terms of
Yeah,
negative,
you mentioned VIP program. What's the VIP program?
VIP program is an exclusive access to certain services. For example, the business that I'm talking to, they have they sell books and some caffeinated drinks. So the VIP people get early access to new products. They get access to certain launches when they meet the author, things like this. So an extra value to them, but they're ready to spend this money for
Yeah,
the more expensive plan.
let me maybe read it back to you so I fully understand it. So you looked at the customer base for this merchant, and you identify different cohorts, and you identify this like one cohort who is like most loyal, like powerful customers, and you
Hmm.
created like a special segment, right, with like
Hmm.
VIP segment, so the merchant can provide them extra services, and it was like an interesting revenue opportunity for them, right,
Correct.
because they like segmented these users. um, I'm very, very interested about like these types of these types of analytics. I'm curious, what parameters did you use to define this segment? Was it more on the consumption side, or like on the behavior side, or any other parameters? There were some rumors, right, like 15 years ago, that like customers who are using iPhones, right, you can charge them like 15% more, right, or something like that.
Hmm.
What are other parameters or signals you're using?
In this case, it was specifically focused on consumption. Like they were buying like more than others, and like they were buying on top of the existing subscription plan.
Hmm.
But you actually raised a very good topic. How much do we know about customers? Because in many cases, the relationship that the business has with the customers is very transactional. You buy something, you leave, and unless you have some complaints, when you reach out to customer support, we don't usually talk. So what a lot of businesses started to do in recent years, they started to do post-purchase surveys, like the general survey that goes to every person, ask for reviews, ask for any comments, that allows to learn a bit more about each person, and that allows actually to tailor the experience going forward. But also in many cases, the survey can be very different. So for example, sometimes we ask about things like, we go to a specific cohort of people buying a specific product and like send them a survey. Hey, can you tell us more about why did you decide to purchase this, why you didn't repurchase it, and so on and so forth. So that allows us to go deeper. And what you do next with this data, like if this data led to creation of specific behavior, what you want to do when you have a new customer, you're trying to pick up early signals in order to figure out in which behavioral cohort this person can potentially get into. So we will create some nudges to ensure that this will happen. So for example, like a quick example could be, if we know that we have a specific cohort of people who upgrade their subscription plan to a more expensive, or who want to have an extra product delivered to them, what will show on the on the thank you page after the checkout complete will be defined on the early signals of people who just complete the purchase. It could be, if we realize that, okay, these are the people who will upgrade, we will show them the upgrade. If these are the people who like something different, they'll see different pictures. So that's why it's important to collect this data, and this is something that should be, the approach is the same for every brand, but what questions are being asked and how they are being used depends on what you do, what you sell.
Before we switch to other examples, still curious on that one.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that like content on a thank you page, right? And there could be some other actions. These are the actions we take on the data, right? And on the based on the analysis. But sometimes these actions looks good on paper, but it's harder to automate, right? Because to update the thank you page, you need like development resources, and you need some dynamic content there, right? That
Mhm.
content should use something like from the database. And all these experiments, they take time and they cost some resources. Um, do you see any way for like automating the sections? Probably like email campaigns is like quite obvious and quite cheap one, right? Because you can send different emails. But are there any other ways we can make actions based on the data cheaper?
That's a great question, because in my eyes, the biggest differentiator between successful companies and, let's call them, mediocre companies, is how fast they can experiment and how many experiments they are running at the same time. Even if all the other parameters are the same, like revenue, number of employees, and so on and so forth. So mm, that leads us to a modern state of experimentation platforms, A/B testing platforms, and so on and so forth. Because um, one of the reasons why actually at Scentbird we decided to do our own front store is because it gave us a complete control of the entire customer experience from the moment they get to the website. And like this is the moment when you also can test like, what if I will present the same homepage to every customer, disregarding what was the advertising they saw, versus what if the homepage has absolutely the same message people just saw in advertising? Will there be an uplift? And up to the specific checkout page, specific thank you page that is flexible based on the search signals that we detected. So uh, that's the first trade-off. How much are you ready to go custom build versus the platform? But also, all the platform solutions are not staying on the same place. They're constantly improving, and like kudos to Shopify for continuously improving their platform. And like their latest release, when people actually can chat with the sidekick and ask it to do some changes, I think this is where it's all going. So the next logical step will be, hey, sidekick, I want to run an A/B test on my PDP, and I want to show subscription offer as a default offer versus a la carte order as a default offer. And eventually, I don't know, probably in a year or two, maybe in a year, we'll get there. And that will help merchants to run much more experiments, much faster, and actually get the experience they want to. Because I believe this is where the industry is going, is all the vibe coding tools and Gen
Yeah.
AI.
Yep. Very, very interesting. As a payments guy, I'm thinking about like how we can utilize payments for data analysis. And the way I was thinking about it, just like people pay with different payment methods, right? Someone pay with Apple Pay, someone pay with American Express, but someone pay with like their student prepaid card, with
Mm-hmm.
like when. Do you see these types of parameters can be used also like in cohorts definition, and we can utilize like payment instrument, for example, as as a
Mm-hmm.
data to that will help us to define the segments.
100%. Because there is so much interesting data exists in payment worlds, and like from the moment when you go to the checkout page, what kind of payment method should be shown? Like, is it
Hmm.
like all possible payment methods to the same person? You can do this, but then the page will be pretty cluttered, especially if you are running an international organization and you support all kind of local payment methods, like certain things in the United States or versus certain things in Brazil and so on and so forth. So this is where like we started experimenting, like what kind of payment methods we show, but also depending on like what do you have in your card, do you show buy now pay later, or you show first and foremost, hey, like we support American Express because you feel that this person could be someone who is ready to spend a lot of money because they just added, I don't know, $2,000 into card when the average order value is $100, maybe. Then another example that I always like about using data the right way is when you talk about subscription and dining. Invalid churn is a huge probably multi-billion problem for the industry. So when you are running your subscription at scale, you have so many combinations of different bin numbers, and each bin number represents a specific type of card. So uh, when you go into this data, you immediately start thinking of experimenting. Okay, what if I have certain dining cycle for people who have credit card versus people who use prepaid card versus people who have something else, and so on and so forth. So being able to create a roadmap of these experiments, being able to run them efficiently, being able to get learning from them and then execute them is is a tremendous success. In many cases, it doesn't require a lot of actions from the merchant themselves, like especially if they use some subscription billing platform. But ability to get access to this data, ability to understand this data in a meaningful way is important. And that can increase company efficiency in so many way. Like it will increase profit right away for them because like, they're literally doing nothing new. They just recover people better, and that's money into the bank account.
Okay, I'm sure you have more examples for me. What are the
Yes.
next ones?
The next example was we recently noticed with a new client, but I heard a similar story before. It was about connecting your customer support tickets to the customer LTV. Because usually when we think of customer support, we think about customer complaints and people write to customer support asking to refunds, replacements, cancellations, things like this. What other brand noticed and what we've seen with our existing brand, people who contact customer support, their LTV is somewhat 30% higher because in their particular scenario, these people are committed, they're passionate about the product they're getting, so they want to make things right. And like they want to communicate this, they want the brand to be better. So after their customer support is great. So after the customer support ticket is resolved, people keep buying from them. They learn a bit more about what's available. Maybe they know, I don't know, how to use product better. So the other brand from what they did, they actually found a way how to change the onboarding flow so people have to contact customer support, and that increased their LTV for the entire audience. It's actually pretty similar to what was the name of this email client, human uh,
Super,
Superhuman,
superhuman.
yes.
Mhm.
So in case of Superhuman, you couldn't just download the application. You had to have the call with the onboarding team, so they ensure you know all the hotkeys and how to use the workflows. So immediately day one, you'll be hooked into the application, and that will increase your retention naturally. So that's a pretty similar example. So that kind of data, like you can get from what you already own, but connecting customer support tickets to the LTV and seeing different cohorts there is not a very simple exercise naturally. Like it requires you focus on this, and it requires you to connect data points the right way.
Right. Um, Maybe let's talk a little bit on like build versus buy. You mentioned that
Mm-hmm.
originally, right? You were on a like preferred building everything yourself, including like analytics. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
path is pretty straightforward. You're just like connecting everything in your data warehouse, some sort of
Mm-hmm.
like BigQuery or Snowflake, and then you're building dashboards. And you probably have like some people who are like building all these dashboards, and
Mm-hmm.
you have like requirements to build it. So I think it's pretty standard. I've seen it in many organizations as well. Um, what do you think are like pros and cons going with this flow versus with out of the box solution
Mm-hmm.
for analytics and insights?
Good question. So at some point, I read a book created by Zappos founder, and he said that early in days we invested in our in-house customer support and in our fulfillment center because that's what allowed us to be unique, and that what allowed us to provide an extreme level of satisfaction for our customers. And I took the same approach towards solving the build versus buy thing, because if there is something that can significantly improve your company efficiency or significantly improve um, your customer satisfaction, but that requires a build out, you should do this because that will allow you to mm, go this extra mile and be above the competition pretty high. If there's something that just need to be solved, then getting it out of the shelf is the right solution. In regards to analytics, what I learned over the past year, it's a very interesting journey for e-commerce companies. So usually companies between $1 and $10 million in annual revenue, they're still trying to figure out, do they have what kind of business do they want to build? Is it a lifestyle business, or is it something that they want to grow extremely big? So they're just running around, they're trying to grow, they're trying to figure out, like, to understand their audience, their product, things like this. If they decide to go big and build a big business, closer to 10 million revenue and then until 50 million in annual revenue, they're using all kind of off-the-shelf products that help them with marketing, that help them with financials, eventually with financial, because usually people like, I'll just hire an account and make sure I pay taxes correctly, I'm not going to jail. They're not getting into details of margin, like margin per product, payback period for different acquisition channels, and so on and so forth. But they understand the importance of data, and like that they have to look into data first before making any decision. Usually after 50 million, people understand that now they are in a high stake game. They need to go deeper in their understanding of what's going on. The off-the-shelf solution, because they're made for everyone, they don't give them that level of preciseness, that level of details. So what usually happens, they hire data analyst, they hire data engineer, they buy Snowflake, they buy Looker, which is around 300,000 annual expense, something like this. Don't get me by
Hmm.
the numbers here, but that's pretty expensive. Plus, in many cases, that's not the core knowledge thing for the brand. Like who used to be just an e-commerce company, now they have to manage engineer, now have to manage data engineer, the data person who will give them the answer. But this is usually where the build out of analytics happens. So it's
Hmm.
really hard to find a company above 50 million revenue who only uses off-the-shelf analytic products. Usually they already have some kind of built out. And what I see, unfortunately, in many cases, they have extremely high hopes that like nothing will ever change to this data analytics. This person will live forever. This person will never take any vacation. This person will always understand what's going on with the business. So that's kind of sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah, very. Yeah, I think there are like a lot of challenges that businesses needs to decide um, what path to take. So again, with your background in Scentbird and now with diving into analytics, do you see most of the challenges with analytics for subscription businesses and businesses who provide like recurring services, or you think traditional e-commerce lifetime purchase have very similar challenges?
I would say the traditional e-commerce now has pretty similar challenges for one big reason. Cost of acquisition nearly doubled in the last 5 years. So there was a huge shift towards retention, towards maximizing the value of each customer that was acquired. And that had a lot of consequences. Yes, there are certain businesses that are mm, or like single purchase, let's say a mattress company or a luggage. So in many cases, like you buy your mattress and then you're good for the next, I don't know, 3 5 years, depending on like how how hard are you using it. But for many companies, that's not enough. That's why we see that companies are launching new product verticals. They create products that complement the initial offering. So it's really hard to find company that like has only one product that is very expensive and they don't sell anything else. Like you want to maximize the revenue of existing customers. So now you need to understand who this customer is, what was their driving reason to purchase, what kind of needs they have, what kind of products I can upsell them, how to communicate to them better, like what differentiate one cohort from another. So now we're naturally getting in the world of subscription businesses that were always focused on second purchase, on third purchase. Do this company like mm, a lot of subscription companies, especially with a low price point, were fine not being profitable on the purchase one, but
Hmm.
like that limitation forced them into be great in retention. So usually having a constraint is a good thing because it helps you to be more creative in what you do. So now this creativity also is getting into the world of traditional commerce who never had any um, focus on retention, any subscription programs. So now we're seeing a lot of membership programs, a lot of loyalty programs that in a nutshell are kind of subscription programs. So despite the business model, the challenges are
Interesting.
pretty similar and data challenges are the same.
Right. So the mattress company will be selling the first mattress for loss, and then they'll make a money on the second mattress.
They obviously will try to maximize the revenue. They will try to be profitable with the first mattress. That's why like D2C for mattresses was a questionable decision. Like few companies were successful in it initially, but then the competition thrives. So then people again started to go into retail, and retail allowed to be more efficient. But then that's why you see mattress companies also selling you bedding, cushions, I don't know, all kind of stuff around your bedroom because they need to get a bit more profit from you. I would say kind of a good and a bad example is oh my gosh, forgot the name of the company I use as example. Um, they sell these home bikes that you use for exercises.
Peloton?
Peloton, yes. Peloton was always profit negative on their device itself. And they were hoping to maximize the revenue through subscription. So during COVID, they had a lot of issues, but then eventually they were able to recover. But yeah, that's a good example. The company is focused on retention. They know they are not profitable on the initial purchase, but because they know they can keep customers very well, they'll get their money back in a year or so.
Yeah. They're still quite expensive though. So
That's for sure.
very curious. Yeah. Right. Interesting. Outside of data, when I'm thinking about AI and all this noise and how it affects payments, I have very mixed feelings because first we talked about AI in payments for decades, but it's a different AI, right? It's more about right timing for like renewal payments, etc. When we're talking about LLM and how we can apply it to payments, I see there are not that many applications, to be honest. Of course, there is the big bucket for agentic commerce and everything. So like on the discovery side, we have analytics. But as you said, it's less about doing the SQL query for you. It's more like explaining the charts or like providing insights that you already generated. And outside of that, I don't see any other applications for LLMs, to be honest, because there are like payments very like transactional. So you have like lines in the database. There's not much more to create additionally. Maybe from your experience, how do you see like AI, LLM, and all this revolution affects maybe like payments, checkout, and kind of like affects that side of business?
We are living definitely in interesting times, and agentic commerce is definitely something interesting happening right now because I personally never used AI to buy anything from me. Definitely, I use it to research things for me, and then I go and make a purchase where I either had some loyalty program or something like this. But if and actually OpenClaw could be a good example because OpenClaw knows my preferred stores where I go purchase because I might get like extra loyalty points. So for example, I like when I think about travel, I'll prefer to use Delta flights because I have my membership there through Amex. So once AI knows all your preferences, why it like knows your decision process, like how do you decide where to buy, what to buy, then it will be able to start making purchases for you. And I would say um, an example that I saw recently was a company, they were giving OpenCore a vision. So they were connecting Meta Ray-Ban glasses to OpenCore through Gemini Live. So you can actually take a look at your fridge and it will it can scan like what's missing from your regular purchase. For if you it will see just one case of eggs and just like no milk, it can technically go and buy all the stuff for you, and then eventually you can I know have a small camera into the fridge. It will check out like what's going on, and if it reaches a certain threshold of the purchase that you feel fine to make, it will go and buy everything for you. This could be example of agentic commerce. What it does to payments, it increases the number of transactions, but again, it's just about increasing number of transactions, not about using LLM to specifically modify how transaction is done. Um, what else? In terms of like again, I only see it as insights because like I've been uh, diving deeper into payments world for about 8 years during my December tenure, and I was like every year I was learning something new, not only about new things but also about existing uh, infrastructure, existing functionality that this industry offers. So I would say what might help is some kind of like mm, payment advisor to the companies that can educate them. At this stage, this is how you need to treat your payments. This is how you need to approach your international payments. Like this is the what foreign exchange means. Like this is how you can optimize it. So it can help like it will mostly affect big companies or companies doing complex transactions because it can analyze like it can pull the final numbers and then give you proposal. Okay, I can do this, I can do that, and one thing that where it can actually help is in order to start doing something. For example, you want to start accepting, like you want to, I don't know, accept new foreign currency, and that might require you to fill a lot of documents. For example, then it can help you to fill these documents. If you are directly connected to the payment providers, to the banks, then you have to be compliant with PCI DSS, so AI can actually check what's going on inside your organization and are you still compliant or not. So, for example, I believe that's what Delph and Vanta are trying to do. They're trying to access not only specific transaction, but also like what's going on in these chats, what kind of information is shared inside task managers, and so on and so forth, to guarantee that you are 100% compliant and nothing is missed, and like what should be the way towards using this. So it's about like not accessing the data, but like helping you to deal with data in a more efficient way.
I have a couple closing questions,
Mhm.
so happy to jump on them. Or maybe before that, again, if you think we're missing something or anything you want to mention, include, we can talk about this.
I think one thing that I want to mention is there is obviously a lot of skepticism in the industry about all these tools, about like AI and so on and so forth. And I recently been to the this, like, small D2C event, and the person there said, "Hey guys, like yes, there are a lot of SaaS solutions over there. What does it mean that you need to try them all to figure out what works for your business? So by trying something, you can understand is it for you or not." And that includes different Gen AI agents and so on and so forth. So literally before our call, I was setting up the NanoClaw agent for myself because I want to understand what it can do for me. So I need to try it. Yes, I need to spend some time. I need to make some mistakes there. I obviously should check this all the security aspects first because like there is a lot of concerns about it. But I have to try it. I have to try it because my competitors will try it for sure, and I want to be ahead of the curve. So like my big recommendation to people is uh, try to like find like if you're a big organization, find people in your organization who can try AI in different areas, including like what it can do to payments. Learn things constantly, but don't be skeptical. Like skepticism is not a good thing in my opinion. Not in this area at least.
Interesting. We should have an AI agent that will go and and will be trying different SaaS and AIs. Um, that sounds great. Couple closing questions from the payments perspective, just like outside of everything we just discussed. What do you think is the biggest problem in the industry right now that kind of like blocks us to go into secure, fast, cheap, convenient payment between between all of us?
Mm, without getting too not too political, but obviously there is a certain state of things, how things work. So, for example, like you have your subscription billing, there are some player, the issue bank, and like Visa, like a lot of players in the industry who don't want to be challenged. So, like that's why we might see a lot of things not moving as fast as we want. For example, as merchants, like what merchants want. If like at some point we were expanding into at some point we were expanding into UK, so we had to open the UK bank account, connect all the payments, connect different payment providers, and it took so much time to do this. Versus what some companies are doing in regards to accepting stable coins, like you run your transaction instantly, you have your money in the bank account, you have money in the vendor account instantly, and it makes life so much easier. Like payments supposed to be an enablement, not something that stops you from making your business greater. So if something can change there, and if AI can help with us, that would be great.
Mhm. Wonderful. And the last question, maybe like, what's an elevator pitch and your advice to the person who is like, the owner of the e-commerce store, like SaaS business, and they're accepting payments? What would you tell them, like how they can accept payments better? Just like one single thing they can add or change in their processes to make their payments acceptance more efficient.
I would say ask your audience what are the top 3 payment methods they use daily to shop everywhere else. If you see that they use some payment methods that you don't offer today, enable them on your website, especially if you're using something like Shopify. That will increase your conversion rate significantly. As an example, when we enabled Apple Pay on Scentbird website, we saw something like 20% increase in current conversion on the checkout page. That was insanely high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can imagine. Just adding one payment method, right? Can drive
In
the
many
revenue.
cases, it could be just like you enable one checkbox in the setting, that's it, and then your revenue skyrocket.
Yeah, that's that's impressive. Thank you so much for joining. It was absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for the great conversation.